So this podcast is about teaching you all, dropping gems, right? Sharing nuggets of wisdom and information on entrepreneurship, esports, entertainment, and education. And so today we're honored to be joined by Malik Forte, who's been in the industry at least a decade, and Sebastian's known him from way back. Tamika's known him, Red's known him from way back, and he's just going to share a bit about how he got into the space and really, again, help educate us and you all. So you can, again, this is your free consulting. So bring your questions. This is collaborative. This is engaging. We're here to help you learn.
I just want to say that I love the shirt, Marcus, first of all. Like, I love that. And then two, I just want to say that you make so much time to educate us and the viewers. Tell us how you've been, what you've been working on, what you've been cooking up, and I want to hear from, Derek and Tamika as well, like what you guys have been cooking up during this time. And we're gonna get to the man, of course, gotta look you up, but we're gonna see what the squad been on.
Well, I just got back from a camping trip up in Florida in the sticks. So we didn't get mauled by a bear, but we did, we had a run-in with another raccoon, but it was cool. It was cool.
Is that like the Everglades? Because Florida?
Everything in Florida is the Everglades.
Oh no, bears and alligators. Hell.
I'm not trying to be there.
Yeah, but for real, I'm working on a virtual gaming and esports course. We'll be sharing more about that soon. And MetaArena is also getting ready to disrupt the esports space by making esports accessible with a tournament platform, something that's novel that again makes esports accessible to brands of all sizes and brands of all sizes and people from all walks of life. So really excited about that. More news to come soon.
That's exciting. I'm involved in that project, and I see exciting things every single time we get to meet or talk. It's literally like I'm just more and more impressed with how much you've built it from like that summer 2 years ago where you're just kind of like super pumped about doing it, and now to see the things falling into place, it's crazy. What about you, Red?
What was this? Well, it's a couple of days ago. I'm back in I don't know the days of the week anymore, everybody. So
what is time,
yo? It's just time. For real. I did my first commentary for a tournament. I've always, been attached to the fighting game community, always loved the fighting game community. So shouts out to Black Oni, Will Wiggins, actually working with the Astro family, so Astro Gaming, to do something for Black History Month and showcase as far as a lot of Black figures in esports. So I was honored to be one of the commentators along with Kiki X Baby. She's known also as well. She did a phenomenal job. I learned so much from her as far as commentating from Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat is one of my favorite games as far as a fighter. So it was just so exciting to just be in that whole atmosphere and doing commentary over a tournament. I always would see it and, of course, interview the players, and I had a chance to actually shoutcast it. So that was really fun.
And real quick before, first of all, I was supposed to be there, but I just got caught up. I didn't get to pop in, but I know y'all did good because I know how much you love Mortal Kombat. And I wanted to ask you, what about the trailer did you think? Are you a yay or a nay on the new Mortal Kombat trailer?
I'm feeling like, as far as how the actors, as far as who they cast, I'm good with the cast. It's just that I got a couple of questions, like I said earlier, on some things. And then I did understand why people was not feeling how Melina looked, as far as her having the teeth situation. It reminded me of Sonic, when all the fans was like, wait a minute, he's a hedgehog. Why does he have human teeth? So yeah, that's my only gripe. As far as the actors, they look like they cast very well. It's just that Jax was looking like Steve Harvey,
man.
From the previous trailer. So I guess they're gonna show a back and forth because Michael Jai White is still in this one, right?
Is he still in this?
No idea.
I seen the Steve Harvey Jax dude, and I seen him get his
I wonder
arms.
if he was still in it. Oh, thanks. I wonder if he was still in it or not. But yeah, as far as who they cast, I'm feeling it so far. And it's just two issues. The one that you mentioned earlier and the one that I said earlier. I don't know if you wanted to kind of dispel on that. more about Jax.
Yeah, he didn't get his arms frozen by Sub-Zero. So, I'm not going to be petulant because I appreciate the fact that Mortal Kombat got a new movie. It's an exciting moment for all of us. But he didn't get his arms froze off by Sub-Zero. He got them ripped off by Ermac. And I feel like...
Was it Ermac?
It's Ermac.
I thought it was Goro.
Nah, Ermac did Jax.
It was Ermac?
Yeah.
In the animated movie, it was Goro. But
in the animated movie, the recent
they keep
one, right?
changing it. So no matter what the timeline, the multiverse be, my man's just get his arms ripped off. He already the only brother in the game. And then they ripped his arms off. No matter what world this goes in, your arms is gone.
The metal arms that's part of Jax's shtick. He has to have them. They have to find a way to take his arms off every time.
That has to happen. They look really good though in this one. I won't lie.
Yeah, they do.
They do look fire. I'm not gonna lie. They look like he could hit something, strong. So I'm excited about it. We get a couple energy waves. I'm good. But the Scorpion looks pretty cool too. So I'm excited about it. What about you, Derek?
I'm just keeping it 1,000. Trying not to. I'm a little bit sick, so I'm hoping it ain't the vid.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you gonna need some. We gonna talk about all the different things you gonna have to take. Once this goes. Medicinals.
COVID been around too long. He got a nickname, the vid. That's been hanging around too long, buddy.
The vid, the Rona, Miss Rona.
Well, I'm excited because Malik. I mean, I feel like you said, we got some old pictures and some old times that can't never be erased. Legendary grind from that early 2008, 2010, like the early days of just getting into those after parties and those events before they went bigger. I mean, it was still just PAX East and PAX Prime, right? And that was like the first PAX East where I met you and Red. And man, it was just an incredible time. And I really respect the journey you've had because you've seen peaks in this industry that a lot of people don't see. And then a lot of black people and minorities don't see it. So I'm definitely excited to have you on here to educate and showcase the people. So you want to drop a little background because they don't know you like we know you. So you might as well drop some gems and some background on yourself so they know where the gems is coming from.
For sure. I'll do that, man. I think first and foremost, it's really important to say, you just kind of highlighted, how we all met at that, PAX. I knew Red, of course, Tamika. I've known her since before that. We kind of knew each other through online, over YouTube. And I think you were on PSN Friends too, weren't you? That old website.
Everything.
All those websites. So
everything. That's how I pretty much networked with everybody. It was all through that. Remember the tester, all that stuff. So that's how I got acquainted with all of y'all a lot.
Right. And everybody's kind of charted their own course and kind of made their own path. And I think that's something really important to always keep in mind for anybody who's trying to get into the video game industry is no two paths are the same. Everybody's kind of got to take their own routes and kind of use some tricks of the trade and some tips and some nuggets from everybody and kind of mix it in to their approach, because there's just not one clear path in, at least not for us. There's some people who get in through nepotism and, who get in because their uncle might, be an executive here or there, but we're still working to get our folks in positions of leadership power to be able to do stuff like that. So I think that's just a good way to preface it. But my path, pretty much all started with me getting into competitive gaming, competitive or professional gaming. I guess you could call it professional because I did make money playing. I did win some tournaments, but it was nowhere near as lucrative as it is today. So I wasn't making like millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands and none of that stuff. So I was playing Rainbow Six Vegas. I had been playing games like SOCOM before then. Of course, for those of you who don't know, SOCOM is an old tactical military shooter that was on PlayStation. It was the first console online game. You had to go buy a network adapter to play this game on your PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
Super throwback. And SOCOM actually started to fuel a lot of competitive gaming and esports. As a matter of fact, if y'all remember Game Battles, game battles actually started off as SOCOM battles.
I remember how many people would say SOCOM battles, and I would just be so intrigued by it because I didn't play those games, but I would always hear that like lunch tables at school that like, oh, we're on SOCOM battles tonight, and I'd be like, what is that? And I looked it up, it was cool, and then it turned into game battles. So that's a piece of history for y'all right there.
Yeah, that's a crazy one right there. It's crazy how that game eventually evolved into game battles, and game battles, of course. Some of the main games that drove that website were like Halo, Gears of War, and Rainbow Six. So I started playing Rainbow Six when I saw that game was kind of like one of the top performing games on Game Battles. And I amassed a little bit of a small following from my time playing on the ladders. A lot of people were like, oh, this guy's good. And I was like, all right, so there's people who like my gameplay, and they're always responsive to me in the forums. I'm going to start making videos for these guys just to, talk about the game, talk about the meta and things of that nature. So I made videos on YouTube about Rainbow Six Vegas. I started doing that, started amassing a little bit of a following from people watching those videos. But there came a point where I realized like, I'm playing in all these tournaments. I'm putting all this time into playing Rainbow Six. But man, I still got to work 2 jobs. I still got like, my ex-girlfriend at the time was just like, what are you doing? You always sitting around playing these games. I'm like, I got to make some money. I got to figure out a way to monetize this or do something to make some money. So I stopped playing that game competitively and focused specifically on the YouTube channel. And instead of talking just about Rainbow Six on YouTube, I started talking about pretty much the game industry as a whole, because I had always read magazines growing up. I was one of those hood rats that was still the demo disc from all the magazines, you know what I'm saying? So I can get in early and stuff. I was always an enthusiast. And I wanted to take that love and that passion and put it into content making. And since I had people watching from that, that opportunity I had as a pro gamer, it was like the perfect moment and the perfect opportunity. So I did that for a while. And as I was making these videos, there was this guy that I followed on YouTube named DLB. I don't know if anybody here knows who DLB is, but he's like, he was the guy who actually inspired me to like start taking these strides in YouTube, because he was the first African-American that I saw that was approaching things from a journalistic perspective. So he would like talk about the industry. He would talk about like games. He would actually get access to like review copies of games. He was the first person I saw on PlayStation Home. He was in the beta, and he would make all these videos about PlayStation Home. And I just thought it was cool. I was like, yo, somebody who looks like me getting access to stuff. That's dope. So after that happened, I was like, yo, you know what? I'm gonna start doing what this dude did. And I did that for a while. And I realized I couldn't just make videos. If I wanted to start going to events, I needed to like actually start producing like written material and have a blog. So I created a blog with my friends called ironstarmovement.com. And basically ironstarmovement.com, the way we looked at it, it was like, yo, we're not Game Informer, we're not Game Pro, we're just a whole bunch of dudes from the streets writing about video games, unfiltered, saying whatever we want to say about these games and just giving you guys the truth. And there was a large sector of people out there who really appreciated that. So they hung on to that. And I think this is something important right here is, for anybody who's aspiring to be in the game industry, number one rule is be authentic. Like authenticity will get you anywhere you need to go, especially in this day and age where everybody's trying to polish things left and right. You got to be yourself. And, I had some struggles with like my identity going through the game industry, but we'll get into that later. Anyways, the Iron Star movement actually starts picking up. We start looking through, me and a couple of my friends who started it, we started looking on YouTube for other YouTubers and seeing who out there was moving the needle and also doing the same thing we were doing. We grabbed these people and brought them into the fold. And basically, the Iron Star movement became like this huge, like Avenger style gaming conglomerate, because there was so many of these YouTubers who had like followings who were all talking about these video games. And we definitely were on top of like the console war too. We would talk about Xbox, we talk about PlayStation. We rode that narrative and that whole battle. And I just knew at the end of the day, we were just making content that just was like, it was shocking to the game industry, because it wasn't just like, oh, these dudes are just putting out content. This is like this group of black guys putting out this content, but it was content that was very intelligent. It was like, it kept up with all the Game Informer and all the other stuff that you saw out there. As a matter of fact, we would post our articles on sites like N4G, which is like an aggregate site where people who have websites or gaming websites would post their content to give it more traction. We would always post our stuff there and it would go to the top of that site. So we were like, we knew we had something. And so we kept making the videos. And in 2009, I remember I was like, you know what, man, I'm gonna try to see if I can like apply to go to E3 because I'm just gonna do it. You know, why not? What could the worst they could do is say no. I applied for E3, and I remember we had just started Iron Star Movement. We were only a couple months in, and we didn't have the traffic that you were required to have to go to E3. But the lady who did all the applications and would approve people, she actually was like, yo, I actually like the fact that you guys come from like a more grassroots style approach, and I want you guys to come on out and just have your first shot at E3. So 2009, my first time stepping into E3, just because I went on a Hail Mary and went ahead and applied. And pretty much after that, man, it was just like stepping on the gas because the first E3, bro, the inspiration was there. I was like scheduling meetings because I started getting, once you register for E3 and you get approved, you start getting automated emails from all the exhibitors because everybody wants to show you their game or their product. So we just took all the opportunities we could get. We were like, yo, they're inviting us to go sit there and check out games. This is a dream come true. So we start showing up. We actually, me and my friend Antoine, we went in suits for our first E3. We wanted to show up and make sure we were cleaned up nice, you know, and we stepped in there, went into our meetings, started networking. And after that, man, we finally had access. So we were able to get review copies for games. We were able to get like early access and be, you know, ahead of the curve in releasing articles and reviews. So our site was getting a lot of traffic. And that went on for a couple years. We did other stuff too. Like I used to make like these crazy little rap videos that were themed around video games that got really popular. So we always put our own flavor into it. What'd you say?
I said I've seen a couple of those are dope. That I liked a couple of them.
The Nathan Drake one.
Nathan Drake one was dope. Yeah, that one's dope. I like that.
Yeah, and you know, Uncharted was the business then. So like it was stuff people really enjoyed. And doing that for a couple of years, everybody in Iron Star, we had like a great content. We had great synergy, but the one thing we didn't have is the business acumen to sustain this monster that we created. And after a while, we all realized like, yo, we're not really making all the money we could be making doing this, you know, and we're putting a lot of time and effort and we're getting all these things, but the return of investment isn't quite there. So slowly but surely, people started breaking off, and rightfully so, because people got to live, you know, and everybody kind of went off and went in their own separate directions and started their own websites and stuff. Me personally, I took a break from doing the gaming stuff, the gaming journalism stuff. And I went into doing gaming promo stuff. So I had already been to E3. I got into E3 as a media. I started going to E3 and working at booths. So I was working with Ubisoft and just doing different promotions. This was just another way for me to get my foot in the door and shake more hands. So when I was working at the booths, the difference between me being a journalist and sitting down with the developers and then this working at promos was I was working with a lot of the developers and the development teams. So I was like sitting in the demo rooms with the folks who made Assassin's Creed, and like I'd be the guy watching the line and making sure all the people at the exhibit.
It's funny. I used to do that too. I used to do the same thing too. I used to do promo work with gaming too. It's
a low key a backdoor into the gaming industry. So anybody out there who's like trying to figure out a way to get in, I know like, you know, it's COVID now, so there's no conventions, but eventually when we do get back to live events, look at doing some promo work. You get to work at the booth. You get to be right there with, you know, the developers because they're always coming through to make sure their game is being presented properly. And for me, I was there all day working these booths, and I spent more time talking to the developers and talking to the PR folks than I did the actual guests at the convention. So I established a good rapport with all these guys. They really liked, you know, what I had to say. And they really were like, this guy really loves it. He's really passionate about it. So it was like early on, I was already establishing these connections and these relationships. I did the promo work though for a couple years, and in the meantime, in the background, I was still writing blogs, and I was at one event, and I was approached by this guy named Brian Walton. Brian Walton's a Cincinnati kid just like me, who happened to be the editor-in-chief at Nerdist.com, and he was somebody who I had met at conventions. I had met him randomly at one convention. I think it was CES, and we exchanged cards, but we never really interfaced until I saw him again at PAX. And he was like, bro, you always post your blogs on Facebook, and I enjoy them. You're such a good writer. Is there any way you can do what you did with Iron Star, but do it on Nerdist.com? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He was like, I want you to build a game vertical for Nerdist. We don't really have video games represented on the site, and I want to get there. And I think you're the person to do it. And I was like, shoot, I mean, what does that mean? He was like, well, me and you will move to Los Angeles. We pay you a full-time, salary, and you would build the game vertical up, and you would hire writers to work under you and stuff like that. And I was like, yo, sign me up, bro. I'm there. I'm out there. So I started off with them for, I think, in 2013, the summer of 2013. And yeah, that was another, I guess, jolt in my career where things really started to pick up, because it was like me doing Iron Star, but on crack. Because not only was I working for or doing what I had already done, which I felt like I was already really comfortable doing it, because I had spent years working the website and syndicating and making sure I had reviews, done before the embargo and all that. I also had a celebrity running a website to put his stamp of approval on it. Chris Hardwick was the owner of Nerdist and the guy who ran Nerdist. And I remember, before I actually got hired, Chris Hardwick, he was filming his show at midnight. He invited me to his trailer, and me and him had a 2-hour conversation about how he envisioned the gaming and vertical on Nerdist and what he wanted to do with it. And I was like, bro, I can make all that stuff happen. So yeah, I spent 3 years at Nerdist building the game vertical. We did some crazy stuff. We got in good with Gearbox. We were doing laser tag events at Comic-Con. We were, everybody, I was getting sent free PlayStations and limited edition this and that. And it was crazy, man. It was just yo, this is everything I dreamed to do. So I did that for a few years. And then after a few years, man, the business side of it caught up with me rather. Nerdist was owned by this company called Legendary Pictures. They're a movie company. They release movies like Godzilla, for instance. And Legendary, they didn't really want to play ball with me, because I had been working there for a few years. I feel like I brought a lot of money in the door from some of the video game collaborations and ad buys we had, but it really wasn't being reflected in my pay, and I was working a lot. So this is one of those situations where I had to get what I was worth. I had to step away. There was another opportunity that I saw on the table with Bleacher Report. If anybody's familiar with Bleacher Report, they're a sports outlet. Yeah, through Turner. And they were trying to get into esports. They knew that I had a past playing in esports, and then they knew I kind of had I forayed in esports a little bit throughout my time in journalism as well. So I went over to Bleacher Report, left Nerdist, and the dollar figures in my career completely changed. Completely changed going over there. And yeah, Bleacher Report was my first step out of or my first step into hosting and having a manager represent me. I ended up getting a manager. This guy would go out and negotiate rates for me. And yeah, ever since then, I've been kind of freelance hosting, and I'll sign on for 1 year with some people, or I'll sign on for a month, or I'll just do one-off events for one day. But that's pretty much been my life ever since I've left Nerdist. And here I am. Right now, I'm kind of I'm still doing all that freelancing stuff, but I'm also working on some more personal projects within the gaming industry. Just started an advocacy group called New Meta, where we're basically focusing on opening more doors for people from marginalized groups to get into the gaming industry. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to come with New Meta. I'm sure we're going to touch on it as we go along, but I tried to make that as quick as possible. The whole journey of my career.
It was filled with gems. I took some notes, and I wanted to take the time to ask a couple questions, because There's a lot of stuff in there that like definitely is like great gems for people to learn how to eat for life. Like I love the idea that you were like you noticed how you had to switch from journalism with Iron Forge to going to E3 and figuring out how to get actually more in with larger companies because journalism, you just stated like journalism wasn't making you enough money, so you wanted to go into like promo and like other things that were using kind of the same skills with sharing your opinion or educating people, but like you switched it for job roles because it had to make sense for you financially while you could still stay passionate about video games. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I wanted to ask you, you know, and I definitely have a ebook coming, and I would love to hear your opinion on like how important is it to manage your time versus like the money you're making. Like when did you know to make the switch from Nerdist to Bleacher Report? Like when you said, you know, they were all those things weren't being reflected. Did you have to self-educate? Was someone bringing you in a room saying, "Hey, I think you're not getting paid enough"? Did you have to self-educate? Did you check rates around? Did you ask friends? How did you know it was time to make that move? When was like I want more money? When was that?
Yeah, that was definitely self-education for sure. I think that I was seeing a lot of my colleagues getting raises. I was seeing a lot of my colleagues, you know, get certain types of compensation. And I mean, I'll be blunt because you guys are my people. But honestly, a lot of the relationships that I brought into the Nerdist sphere early on, like relationships with 2K and relationships with Ubisoft, we did a lot of like ad buys, and the sales team was interfacing with these guys a lot, specifically video game companies.
Right.
Mind you, Nerdist is a multi-headed beast, so there was like movies and there was other outlets, but yet a lot of the ad buys were being done from video game companies. But yet other people were getting raises, not the video game guy. That made no sense to me. And when I really sat back and thought about it, you know, and I was just like, man, this does not feel right, you know? And I feel like a lot of times as Black folks, when we're trailblazing and we're in situations where we're the only Black person, we might be intimidated to speak up when those situations happen, when we're getting exploited. We won't say it because we really have no one else to back us up. And there were a couple of folks in the office who felt where I was coming from, but like at the top level, on the top floor of the building, they looked at me like I was crazy when I went up there and said these things. So it was one of those things where people gaslight you, and you just, your heart knows though, that gut feeling knows like, something's wrong here. You're getting exploited. And I definitely credit my mother, because my mother's someone else who I watch, trailblaze. She was the director of the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority, one of the few Black women to be the director of the entire city. And she was in a lot of situations where she was a Black woman in a room full of white males, and they would gaslight her when she would speak up about things, and she'd be like, no, these are my neighborhoods, and I know how things are going in these neighborhoods. And it was the same thing for me. It was like, I understand the gaming streets better than anybody in this building. So, these relationships that I'm bringing through the door, and a lot of the work that I'm doing, I'm not seeing a return. It's not fair to me. And I don't want to continue to go down this road where I'm getting exploited, because if I allow for this to happen, anybody else that comes through the door after me, they're going to do the same thing. I feel like I need to set an example. So it was a bit of a risk, and I'm not going to lie, having the Bleacher Report thing waiting in the wings made it a lot easier. Even though I didn't get paid for like the first 6 months of that job, which that's a whole nother story. But I was like, man, no, I can't stand idly by and let this happen. So yeah, it was just a gut feeling, man. That's all it took. It was just something inside of me was like, nah, I can't continue this.
Okay.
So when you were pioneering, like doing the grind from the promo side, that part of the industry, did you feel like a minority when you were going to the events like E3 and stuff? Did you feel like a minority during that point?
It would be times where I would feel like that. There would be certain people I would try to talk to. There were certain folks who were in positions that I wanted to be in, like broadcast positions or whatever, folks who might have been hosting on G4 TV or whatever, and they'd come and visit a booth that I'll be working at, and I'd try to talk to them. They'd just be like, and they like walk away, and I'm like, oh dang, like I was just trying to interface with you, but you don't want to talk to me, not give me a time of day. It's cool, and it's almost like they look down on me in a sense. And those were times where I did feel like that. But then I just kept my eyes on the prize, man. And after a while, all those people who were like doing that, they became my colleagues, you know. And then so it was like, you know, it was whatever after that. And I think that's another thing too for folks to learn too. That you know, coming up in this game as a Black person or from any marginalized groups, there's just going to be a ton of people who, you know, have this like pompous attitude towards you, you know, and will be quite pretentious when you're just simply trying to network or, you know, maybe trade notes. And you can't let those people bother you or get you down. Just got to keep walking, keep it moving, keep your eyes on the prize. And yeah, but I definitely felt that way a couple times. Probably not as much because in those settings where I was working at the booths, I would be seeing a lot of the convention attendees, which is typically a mixed bag. Of course, you know, I see folks like Sebastian and Tamika at the events too. So, you know, I always felt like my people were around me. They were there. The presence was there. But on the business end, you know, it always was a little frustrating. And I just knew that I just had to keep, you know, charting forward and keep pushing forward. So, you know, it wouldn't be like that. And I wouldn't be like that. And it'd be more of a mixed bag of folks, you know, and no one would feel like they're the, you know,
it's fun when they act funny.
In the room.
It's funny when they act funny at the floor at E3, right? If you're like the brand ambassador or you're doing the promo, like they'll act funny at the floor on E3, but then you all get to go home and get fly to go to the Twitch party, and so then when you show up at the Twitch party, it's like a different attitude. So it's funny to be able to go back and think about those times because I know exactly what you're talking about with like, you know, when you're working at a booth, people try to shame you as if like you're a regular, but there's nothing regular about being an E3. So
they never know who you are as
right.
well. Like just like you was mentioning the parties, and this is for anyone watching, especially if you aspire to be in journalism as well. You get a lot of jewels from parties because once these people start to drink, they just be flying off the rest. Like I'm like, oh, so that's coming out. Like, oh, so that's y'all working with this company, and like people just start talking. So it's really funny because once you go into these parties, no one knows who's who a lot of times, and that's where you're able to kind of it's like a golf course sometimes at these parties. And then that's where you get a lot of people just like there's no PR around. So, you know, the PR is drunk probably too. Like, so, you know, that's where I'm like, I'm the person that's all right. I'm listening.
You know,
so,
it's funny. It's funny
observing.
It's funny you say that because it's like, that's a part of a benefit, right? It's like you go out and you're getting $20-$25 an hour to help people at a booth. And then afterward, you connected with somebody who knows somebody and they can get you in the Twitch party or the Fortnite party or whatever. And you in there with the, you know, with all the big streamers and all the big, you know, executives from the publishers and the talent. And, you know, you're just in there and you build those real relationships. And there's nothing more powerful than that, right? Like no matter how many likes you have, no matter how much attention you get here, it's like there's nothing more powerful than a real human connection. And so you get those a lot at those parties and on like the floor when you get that camaraderie of working with people and stuff. So I definitely am feeling that point. Like I like that idea that like, you know, people need to consider being a brand rep. I even wanted to drop in a note that I saw a job interview for a brand rep for a digital convention, like what Marcus and Derek threw. They have like where they'll pay you to like host the rooms and things like that, like and manage them. So I mean that's a great way to still get into the industry that way too, you know.
Yeah, that's the digital form. Yep. Right.
And if you're truly passionate about those things, you can definitely get in because a lot of these like brand ambassador like talent agencies that hire people, they'll go for like the people who are more personable and the people who, you know, are well spoken. They won't necessarily go for the people who have the most knowledge. So you can shine in that area and completely surpass anybody. And that's kind of what I did. I noticed that they were hiring all these pretty boys. And I'm like, all right, cool. I might not be like Rico Suave, but I know everything about video games. I'll make these guys look like novices when I step in the room. And that's eventually what happened. You know, they started calling me back like, hey, we want you to come to PAX this way. We'll fly you out, you know, and went from there. So
any advice for when to value the opportunity versus scrutinize the compensation?
Yeah, man. I feel like, especially if you just getting started, like, you know, I'm sure Sebastian and Tamika, we know this. We've done our fair share of pro bono work. You know, when you first start off, that's just kind of like the name of the game. But I feel like now, since gaming's moved forward a little bit, and there is money to be spent, I would just say, just kind of fill it out. You know, when you're first getting started, you're not going to get the paychecks that you want. You want to build your portfolio as well. Eventually, you want to make sure, like, if you're trying to do on camera stuff, you want to have a reel eventually. So you do things that you can add to your reel, and that will look good on your reel because that adds value. Because every time you show that reel to somebody, they'll be like, "Oh, you did this thing. That looked good. Okay, so I could potentially have this. I could potentially have this on my production. Cool." Or say if you want to be a journalist, you know, you maybe write freelance articles for this website or that website, you know, and you might not get paid the most, but that's something else you can add to your portfolio. And I think once your portfolio hits a nice place, that's when you should start kind of thinking like, all right, I'm not just trying to sign up for any opportunity, you know, so I can pad my portfolio. That's already good. I want to make sure I'm getting a good return on my investment.
And even starting with what you have too, a lot of people, like I got trapped in that thinking that I had to get approval or hired. Nowadays, you got so many platforms to like make your own. Like LinkedIn alone, you could just put up articles of stuff and you have more of who you really need to target to get a position to actually see your work. But yeah, definitely have to go through those trenches of proponents. I still do. You know, there's certain opportunities I might want to get into that I've never been in. And I'm like, okay, I have that door open now. I can settle for this pro bono, but now I have a case study. I made my own case study. So now I can sell that case study for the next opportunity.
Right. Yeah. I think it's a matter of just weighing the options, weighing the opportunity. You know, also like your relationship with whoever it is that you're working with, collaborating with, like if it's a friend of mine or somebody who's starting something up and, you know, they're trying to, you know, get something off the ground and they need me to come and help them out. You know, I might do that pro bono just, you know, for the sake of helping my friend out. And, you know, it also helps me because I can practice, I can flex the muscle a little bit more because when you're doing anything that you're doing, the more you do it, you're going to get better at it. It's always like going to the gym. And so, you know, you just kind of got to weigh the situation and weigh the opportunity. But, you know, and also making sure you're having very transparent conversations with whoever the organizers of these events are, because like, you know, some people will try to exploit you just from the jump and they'll think like, yo, since I didn't pay you for the first thing you did, I'm never paying you again. Right. And you got to let that know, like, this is a freebie. This one, we'll do this one for free, but let's escalate the conversation as we move forward, you know?
Can't be scared of that conversation piece, right? Like you have to be able to have that conversation and you have to be able to accept failure. You know, that's a part of the scientific method, right? If you can't fail, you can't learn. And this is what scientists use for scientist stuff. All right. They don't send stuff to the moon without, if you can't fail, you can't learn. They don't mix two chemicals together without, you can't fail, you can't learn. They don't test out how much milk goes in the cereal without understanding if you can't fail, you cannot learn. So you got to know it's a part of the scientific method. So don't be scared to ask for too much and get shut down. The sun going to come out tomorrow, so you're going to be fine. Don't be scared of those conversations. Have that convo. Understand is what I'm catching here. Marcus, you know, how about you? You've hosted some events, definitely super formal. Like, that's what I feel like when I met you. You were hosting like formal events. Is there anything different than like the E3 type of thing, like that because I've done less of those, right? I've done a lot of like kind of grassroots commentary and like smaller events, but I know you like I swapped in for you at a pitch competition, and I'll tell you, like, I'm pretty good at talking. And at that pitch competition, I was like, this is different. This is different. This is not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
I think Malik said it perfectly, you know, kind of, you know, starting with networking opportunities and volunteering, and Red said the same thing. I did the same thing here in Tampa. You know, I've been down here 8 years, and Synapse is kind of building themselves as like the South by Southwest of the Southeast. They're Florida based. And they first had their in-person event in 2017 at the hockey stadium. And I just took time off my day job, my vacation, right? And I went and volunteered for 2 days. And then the next year, I think it was, they reached out to me and asked me if I'd like to be kind of the hub leader for the esports and gaming section of that event. You know, and then fast forward now 3 years, you know, Derek and I are working on Beyond Meta, and they were a community partner for us. So it's all about kind of investing, understanding that payment upfront is not the only value that you can get out of an opportunity. You have to invest in your own career and your network.
Well, let me ask you, why aren't we worth getting the compensation on the first go around? Why do we need to prove? Why isn't getting to the door and in the door good enough to be compensated? Why do we feel like we need to prove in order to get the compensation?
I mean, I think that's a matter of just like your experience too. Like, I feel like if you are experienced in the field that you're working in, then you know your worth, right? But I feel like for me, I'm a merit-based worker, just at heart. So I wouldn't feel right taking a dollar amount for something that I wasn't 100% comfortable and prepared to do. And I don't think I was, you know, just being transparent, like the start of my career, I would see folks doing it, and I don't think I was quite on their level. Like, and I was like, I need to work my way up to that level. So part of it for me was taking those free opportunities so I could flex that muscle and so I could get stronger. I do think though that folks who feel like out the gate, they have something to offer and they have those skills, by all means, know your worth, you know, ask for what you want up front. It really comes down to the person, you know, knowing their worth, and knowing what they have to offer. So yeah, Derek, I totally get what you're saying.
Have you ever considered that to be Black trauma?
What's that?
Where you feel like you have to do the merit base, like because you are the Black person, because you're evaluating yourself as less than, that you think that, well, let me prove to you that I'm worth you giving me compensation versus my time is valuable, whether I'm just started or whether I've been doing this 10 years or not.
I felt like a couple of times when I did start actually getting paid, I wasn't asking for enough at times. And I felt like I was devaluing myself, you know, because for whatever reason, but mainly because I was Black. And I was like, yo, I should really start asking for more. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't undersell myself, because I'm seeing other people get paid. So like, why not ask, you know, for more? But yeah, I don't think that at the beginning for me, it wasn't even a thought on my mind, honestly, like to get paid. It was just one of those things where I was just like, I just want to get better, you know? And eventually I had hit a point where I was like, all right, I'm doing this stuff really well. And I remember it was one of those Uncharted videos I had made, one of the Uncharted rap videos. IGN reached out to me and they were like, we want to use your video as our Game of the Year announcement. And I was like, okay, well, that video got a lot of views, so you guys are gonna have to pay me. And it was just different. I think that was like the moment where it clicked for me, though. It was like, now I've gotten to the point where I'm comfortable now in what I'm selling and what I'm putting out there. So I'm gonna ask for what I deserve. But yeah, there's a part of it, man. Like, you make a good point when you say Black trauma and just like devaluing yourself, and that was part of like the identity crisis I struggle with, trying to find my footing in esports and seeing other hosts and what they're getting paid, and, you know, learning what my value was. And another thing about esports and just the gaming community in general is a lot of people undercut. So a lot of people will be like, yo, I'll take less if you let me work, because everybody is hungry for the opportunity. And that right there cannibalizes like the folks who actually have been trying to push things forward and to get us more money. And so that creates a kind of a difficult situation as well. That's something else to consider. And yeah, there's tons of things, but at the end of the day, it's about folks really knowing their worth and standing firm on that.
In your journey, has there been any opportunities that you felt like you've blown?
Did I blown?
Yeah.
Nah. I don't think I've blown. I wouldn't say there's anything I've blown. Maybe some opportunities that I regret, like not asking for more. There's definitely that. There's some situations where I was like, I took too little for that. And that was kind of a little bit closer to the start of my career freelance hosting, like when I was going around doing one-off events. And it was just one of those things. I just didn't have the knowledge, and I really didn't have any big homies who had been doing it before me to, kind of show me the way. Yeah. So I was just, everything was a case study for me. Every event was like, okay, I get paid this much. And I'm lucky because my manager, he's a Hollywood haggler. So he always oversells. He asks for way more and then, gets us to a good number. But before I had him, I didn't, I wouldn't say afraid.
Out in the woods, pretty much.
Yeah. I just didn't know. I was just too fresh in the game. And
so do you feel like that mouthpiece has been a valuable part to your earning power? The exterior mouthpiece. Yeah. The exterior person doing that for you.
Oh yeah. Definitely. I feel like having a manager has definitely helped me. It's helped me understand. I'm at the point now where I love my manager. I love Andronic. I don't really need him. I don't need him because I've gotten to that point now where I understand the moves that need to be made, the things that need to be said. But he still represents me. He still goes out because we have rapport. That's my homie. And it's one of those things, though, where, not everybody's going to understand those things. And I'm lucky to have that person to kind of teach it. And for me, I find it very important to communicate with others about these things. There's so many aspiring folks coming into the gaming space, aspiring Black folks coming into the space hosting. And, they'll come to me and they'll be like, yo, I'm getting paid this much. What do you think? And I'll tell them straight up, like, nah, that's not enough, bro. You need to ask for more. Don't let them do that to you,
I had a situation like that as well, too. But like even Derek, what you said about the trauma, that also falls in place with us, too, of having this so-called imposter syndrome. A lot of us Black people do this all the time. Is because we get ever so grateful when we do get an opportunity because we don't see either our peers or family members or anybody that look like us too. So it's like, damn, what do I ask? Like, what I'm saying? Like, what do I do? What do I ask? So like having people now, especially being vocal about like, yeah, I did go through that. I did ask for less, or I didn't even know I was getting paid less. That's another thing too. People go into this imposter syndrome thinking like, oh, I shouldn't apply for that because, on the job description, it says X, Y, and Z, and I haven't done that yet. And not knowing that they probably did. They do probably have that, but it's just said differently. I tell my friends that all the time, like even in this current situation that we're in now with COVID is, a lot of things that you apply to, it's just like a deal. They're going to oversell that position to kind of swoop out all the people that think they're not valued enough to take the position. And that's all the time when you try to apply for something a lot. It all boils down to even getting into the interview. But if you show that you have value, somebody's going to smell that. Like, okay, I'm looking at this right now. This person seems like they have value in everything that they've done. But it's something that we kind of challenge each other on, like ourselves all the time. Am I good enough to do this? And that is a part of trauma. That's something I always say to a lot of people. And they always have, well, I'm that ever so grateful. I'm like, no, you're a God. And a God is like, just know that, you know what I'm saying? You was made in his image. Just know that you're able to actually do that and more. We could look at our culture now and everything. We make everything pop from LinkedIn to Twitter to Facebook to Instagram to TikTok. Yet
I never saw LinkedIn pop. Marcus, you showed me LinkedIn.
Marcus is getting it popping.
Popped off.
So saying that contradicts the opportunity perception then. Like everything you just said contradicts ever taking an opportunity without compensation as a Black person.
I mean, it's a different day now. Culture is currency now. So like it's we are at a completely different time from when I feel like when I first started out, that we weren't sought after. You know,
Right.
like a lot of companies were unapologetically white males and they didn't care. They were just like, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And so for me, it was like, I just need to get my foot in the door, figure out like how I can show these dudes I can bang with the best of them. Now it's like we are sought after. Everybody wants culture. I was sitting in a meeting room, and I remember I was the only Black person in the room, and everybody was like, "We need some culture in our production." And everybody turned and looked at me, and I
We're
was
the
like,
definitive
okay.
of culture.
Yeah, they don't even know what they mean when they say culture.
Yeah, they just look at
They know to turn to you for it.
Right. Like, they think
Black
culture is
person
just
is
like
in this
some imaginary
Whatever this
monster that
culture
lives in
thing
our
is.
neighborhood. Yeah,
Like,
right?
we know he got the seasoning in his pocket.
word. He got the seasoning. He got the Laurie's, the Sasson, all of that, because we don't. So like
That
crazy,
happened.
yo. It's
That happened
so
in 2018. That happened in 2018. It was at that moment I realized I was like, bro, I'm never working for free.
That's a gem. I mean, so let me ask you a question. What's the highest that you've ever been paid or you've seen in the era of this game? Because people want to get in the game and they want to be the best, right? They want to learn how to get to that level. What are some of these levels that's possible to get to?
Yeah, well, for me, I would say the most I got paid was for a 1 month event, traveling the world, covering the game Overwatch. They paid me $60,000 just to do that. And it was like, all right, so they're paying me $60,000, plus they're paying for my food, plus they're paying to fly me all over the world. It's not a bad deal.
Yeah,
and I'm just talking about video games. It was just a month. I was gone for a month.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That happened, and I was just like, I was kind of in disbelief at it, but at the same time, I was like, I work for this shit. I was like, bro, I put in so much work, man. Like, this is a culmination of all those years of working pro bono and going to those events. You know, this is what I had worked for. So, yeah, but it fluctuates, man. Like, I have a day rate. You know, I feel like for beginners, your day rate, you know, it could be anything between $500 for an hour, or $1,000 for a day, or $2,000 for a day, or whatever. And you know, you kind of just you judge it based off of, like, you know, what you need, and make sure you keep scaling that. You know, if you're working with somebody and they pay you a fixed rate for an event, and y'all work together again, you should probably get more. And that should kind of be like a general understanding between the two of you, but most of the time it's not going to be. So make sure you verbalize these things when you're talking to folks, because they'll try to keep paying you the same. And there's this trick that that a lot of like these hagglers have tried to pull on me, where they're like, well, you're doing the same amount of work that you did last time. Why should I pay you more? And you'd be like, well, how well did the last event do? Like, didn't we get like lots of people watching? Didn't it go off without a hitch? The reason why you're paying me more is because now you know what's being brought to the table. Before you didn't, but now you actually have proof of concept that I can hold down the fort here. So now I'm demanding a little more, and that's a perfectly, you know, reasonable ask at any level of the industry. Be it you working on camera, or even if you're just somebody who works behind the scenes as a producer, I think that's a perfectly level-headed ask.
At what point did you start treating yourself as a business versus trying to be compensated for working for businesses?
That came a little late, man. I would say that was like around 2018. Around 2018 is when I really started to like double down, went ahead and established like the Inc. and the LLC. Make sure, you know, I am writing things off on my taxes, making sure that when I'm taking money, I'm not taking money under my name, but I'm taking money under my business's umbrella. And you know, that just kind of came with, you know, me just educating myself, man. I had to read some books. I had to learn how to file my taxes. I had to sit down and do the work, you know. And part of it was my manager helping me out with some things too. He put me in touch with some folks to help me like with filing and with starting my thing. So but ultimately, man, I didn't want to be in a situation where, like you said, I was just constantly always working for other people and waiting on paychecks from other people, because esports is notorious for not paying folks and making folks wait for their money. And also I wanted to get to a position where I can employ friends and employ other folks. And, of course you have to do that under a business. So yeah, I would say 2018 was when it was really late in my career, when I started seeing that. And it became, once you start doing those things, you realize like, you look at your work a little differently, because now it's not like, oh, I hope these guys hire me to do this event. It's like, I hope I can collaborate with these guys and we can, work together to accomplish something. You start thinking, the way you structure your deals is completely different once you start thinking a lot more business minded.
Yeah.
Lee, talk a little bit about New Meta, because Derek and I put together that event 2 weeks ago, Beyond Meta, and it sounds like just from the top line description you gave that it's really focused on creating opportunities for underrepresented communities. So just talk a little bit more about that, because I'm sure the listeners want to know about it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So New Meta Group, it's basically a collective that of industry veterans that I'm getting together, and we're all just basically trying to open some doors with the gaming industry from the high levels, and then kind of bring them down to more of a grassroots level to talk to folks who are aspiring to work in the industry. So for years, I've been going to these gaming conventions and these events, seeing all these developers walking around, doing all these panels, but they'll sit down with the Greg Millers. They'll sit down with the Jeff Keeleys. They won't sit down with us, and they won't talk to us. So New Meta is kind of trying to make these conversations happen, to get these guys to come, and these game studios who will get on Twitter and say, yo, we want to hire Black people. We want you to come sit down and say this to our face instead of doing the performative social media stuff. And that's kind of like our mission, is to create like access channels to these folks who are hiring. Not only that though, but to provide some resources to aspiring game professionals too, and ultimately educate folks, because the Black community has so much buying power when it comes to video games, but we aren't reflected in the executive levels of the game industry. That makes no sense.
2%.
Why is it that so many Black people contribute to the video game industry's success, yet we can't be leaders and we can't be CEOs and we can't have ownership? That's not fair. And to me, I feel like that conversation needs to be had a lot more. And so that's kind of what New Meta is all about. And we're just trying to make those conversations happen, be it at conventions, be it behind closed doors, just increasing that discussion. And yeah, man, that's pretty much just like a high level synopsis of it. It's still really much in its infancy. We literally just started this like the end of January this year. And so there's a lot more to come, but ultimately what I'm hoping for, man, is I'm just hoping to get a lot more Black folks' foots in the door and to just get them on the right path. Right now, we see people like Ninja. We see all these guys who are becoming famous streamers and becoming famous this is and that. Or people will look at me and say, oh, you've accomplished so much in the broadcast space or whatever. But man, honestly, there's very little power that comes in this. The true power comes in ownership. The true power comes in like really being able to move the needle from the inside, and to be able to work as like a league global marketing manager for a game or something like that. That's where you really get your foot in the door. So we want to point people in the right direction and say, hey, you don't have to be front facing to be in the game industry. There's so many jobs here that could really sustain you and to give you quite a bit of leverage to help the community. And you know, that education is important. So that's kind of the whole mission, man, is just to educate folks and to give folks access and the resources they need to succeed in this industry.
Well, where can they find you, and where can they find more about New Meta, and how do they get educated more, man? You came in here, you dropped gems, and a lot of you guys all dropped gems today. I learned a lot from each and every one of you, so good looking out on that. But now, where can they find you at when you're not here on the E for Life podcast?
Yeah, at Malik Forte on all social media channels. Newmeta.gg is the website. If you go there now, you're going to see a picture of the Black Panther saying coming soon. I very much look at New Meta as like trying to do a lot of what the Black Panther movement was trying to do, but in video games. I look up to everything that the Black Panthers did because they understood the power of politics, and they tried to utilize that for the betterment of the people. And they understood that, the black mission is important, but in order to get the black mission and to bring success to the black community, you have to look at other marginalized groups and help them out as well and bring them into the fold. And so that's what New Meta is about. And so if you go to newmeta.gg right now, you can kind of see that. That's kind of the visual, but for anybody who visits it, that's
I threw it in the chat for y'all, so don't act like I didn't show you. And if you only hearing this on the podcast, then that's why you got to come live on Sunday nights, okay? Malik dropping gems on how to get in the industry. I took away that you need to be a brand ambassador. I am very keen on that, and I'm going to explain that later because that is a huge proponent to where I've gotten to in my career. Red, I've seen you there and move up beyond it. So there's two different cases I've seen of starting as the brand ambassador and moving forward, or promo or whatever have you. And I didn't even know about Ironforge until today and on the pre-call.
Iron Star.
Sorry.
All good.
Me.
All good.
I didn't even know. See, and that's me being honest. I didn't know because I met you already for Nerdist. So like to me, I just got more extension on how far back you really started, which just really speaks to the fact that like you put the time in, it goes somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Because it shows that because in those years, I remember 08, 09, we didn't know each other yet. We got to know each other right at 09, 010. So to see what you were doing before, that's crazy. And even Red was there. So Red got some years on me too. Yep. Y'all got some skills, man.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing Red back in the day, yo. She was on a grind, man. It was just it was a blessing, man. I feel like if anybody's gotten the short end of the stick when it comes to the video game industry, it's been black women. And so seeing Red was always like a beacon of hope for me. Like at all the events, for real.
Yup. Right on. Well, Malik, thank you for coming through the show. Anything from Marcus or Derek? Any questions? Any other extra gems? Y'all just hosting the event, so you know about hosting. So anything that they should take away? It seems like you gave away some great advice. Any last advice you want to give? Anything like that? This is how people can get in through commentary. So any last advice from you guys?
I don't have any advice right now, but I have a question for Malik, and shout out to Hip Hop Gamer for starting this conversation as kind of a commentary on Soulja Boy. Malik, what are your thoughts on kind of the relationship between the gaming industry and hip hop community? Hip Hop Gamer made it very clear that the community as a whole just hasn't really, hip hop community hasn't embraced the gaming culture, and we've been seeing the last couple of months and years. Even professional athletes, black athletes and black celebrities investing into non-black owned companies. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, hip hop hit the nail on the head with that. I don't feel like the hip hop community really embraced video games like that, but it depends on what you're talking about when you say hip hop community, because I feel like there's like the industry, the hip hop industry, and then there's hip hop like the street level, like you'll hear some people say like, I'm from the rap streets. I'm from the real streets, not the rap streets. You'll hear some people say that. And I feel like the rap industry and that kind of sector, the part of hip hop that's very much powered by money, doesn't really give a fuck about video games and never really did. It's just now starting to come around. And you're seeing a lot of folks who've been movers and shakers within the, that hip hop industry coming into video games and trying to find a way to cash in. It is kind of unsettling because it's like, you want fucking with us like before, Exactly. So like, what are you here now for?
You wasn't shooting in the gym,
right? But I do feel like hip hop has always had an influence, on video games, and there have been folks in hip hop who have embraced it since the very beginning. Shouts out to Just Blaze. I just did a panel with him a couple of weeks ago, and he talked a lot about some of his journeys within the video game community. Of course, he scored Def Jam Vendetta, NBA Street Volume 2, two of the best video games of all time. He actually was in a situation where they were just trying to get him to send them beats. And he said, no, I want to actually like work on game mechanics. I want my music to play this way at certain points of the game. And he really put himself in the room with the game developers to make things right. And thank God he did, because, you know, if you play NBA Street and heard how the music picks up when you get a game breaker, that wouldn't have happened if Just Blaze didn't step in those rooms and talk to those developers. So, you know, I think of folks like him, and I'm like, all right, these are folks who actually have embraced video games. But, you know, as a whole, Marcus, I think hip hop is kind of right with that, man. It's really unsettling to see all these hip hop figures kind of come in and try to take a piece of the pie. And I'm not a gatekeeper. I don't like being a gatekeeper. I always like keeping the door open for anybody who wants to come into video games. But at the same time, I will cut you if you try to exploit this.
We don't like that. We don't like that. We don't like that. And I just want to say, I got to give a shout out to my man Tom Lee over at Tecmo Koei, because we put Showdown in DOA back in 2012. So you know, some places, and I also want to shout out CJ from Console Kings, because hip hop and gaming combined was together way before other people started claiming that they did hip hop and gaming. You know who you are. Claiming.
You gotta know who Console Kings are. You gotta know who they are.
Console Kings are the originators of hip hop and gaming. And I mean, they really carved out that lane in a way that no one had seen before. And they really kind of brought the culture of the digital age into hip hop in a way that like was truly special. And got a lot of love for CJ and all that whole team over there. Yeah.
Yeah. Still don't get the respect they deserve.
No.
So I'm glad to put that out there.
No. I'm glad you said it. They don't. You got a lot of people claiming that they're putting hip hop and gaming together, but they're not. They're not. They're not. They're taking good photo ops and using cool words from black terminology.
Yeah.
I think that's probably my gripe about the people that have come to the party late from the hip hop industry, only because I know the other gatekeepers in the gaming industry let them in the door quicker because they see the marketing play and they see the eyeballs and the impressions that they can get, versus letting somebody in the gate such as ourselves that would add value to the industry because we understand the industry. That's the only, like, I'm with you, like, I'm not into gatekeeping, but I also know that when you get celebrities, people want the celebrities because they're looking at eyeballs and from a marketing standpoint, not a value add standpoint. So
look what happened with Ninja.
Yeah. So
Ninja popped off because of Drake. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would have been dope if Drake would have streamed with, let's say, another big Twitch. You know what I'm saying? Let's say it was Myth. Like, so it brings a question of, okay, we see, just like you were saying, Marcus, we see a lot of these hip hop artists, and they've invested in a lot of white-owned esports teams. We have yet to see, 100 Thieves, like, and we even see black basketball players investing in these white-owned teams. We've seen Rick Fox, who was like the only big as far as mainstream team, black-owned team. He got ousted out of his own company by a racist. You know, just, and then understanding as a black company who you're actually letting in to be on your board, because they could just take it right over, just like what happened with Rick Fox. So it would have been nice to see that a hip hop artist that's huge invested in Empire Arcadia, a Dynamic Focus, you know, a lot of these different esports teams that we know that are actually black owned and actually move it. Because if not, y'all keep saying Black Lives Matter on this, but not seeing a systematic approach on actually moving the needle.
So I agree, right? That is challenging, but I also understand the reality of the space is when you think of professional athlete and you think of their journey to be a professional athlete, they've been groomed the entire process to be handled by somebody outside of their culture for advice, for finance, for agency, for support, so that when they become an athlete and now I have all this money, the opportunities are being brought to them by not their community. In their community, people are asking, hey, I need help with my light bill. Hey, I'm trying to open up a barbecue joint. Hey, I'm trying to get my cousin to pay his bail, or etc. So the real opportunity in their eyes comes from people outside of their community. So therefore, if I have Jimmy as my agent and Jimmy knows Paul, and Paul's starting up an esports or gaming tech thing, and talk to him, and I bring him to the table, the basketball player or the athlete or whoever has the money, their optics of not even understanding the space or what else is available for them to invest in is already short. So therefore, they're taking the people that's around them advice to say, oh, okay, yeah, this is a good company for me to invest in. Jimmy's my agent. Let me go ahead and invest in that. Not even aware that there's a Sean Paul or a little Kimbo that got the same business over in Chicago somewhere that's kind of booming that could use some support. They don't know because they've been handled by people outside of the community. And I think
outside of their people in their community.
Yep. We underestimate that.
Yeah, it's having a mindset too, because now everybody's mindset want to change all of a sudden. Like that part alone is definitely the truth as far as saying, okay, this person might be, they have to know what they're doing because they've been doing it for so long and I just started. Or I'm just now in this sector. I was just worrying about music, but they're the ones that's handling my business. So they must know what they're talking about. But then now, because everything has shifted, especially, since last year alone, it's like, you Black, right? Like, it's like the mindset of, okay, now I know I'm Black. It's like people didn't know that they were Black on certain ends, just because of it, just because their money was set up a certain way. So it's like, okay, now I need to make sure that they have a marginalized voice. I'm Black, I got money, I feel like I don't, but now I understand right back, but you knew what you went through from before. Yeah. So it's like, yes, that concept is true, but now is no excuse. It's like right now, since a lot of things have been happening due to a lot of unfortunate events, it's like now there's no excuse right now. And it is true as far as what Soulja Boy was saying and a lot of things that he was doing, and people was trying to make fun of him on what he was doing as well too. So
yeah.
Well, they was getting on my boy Soulja because you got to do things legally, right? Like you can't just take Nintendo games and put them in a case that you got from AliExpress and then call it Soulja Game and sell it. No, Soulja, that's not going to work.
But we seen Hyperkin doing it a whole bunch of times in a different way from a Chinese company as well.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't buy that neither. So, it ain't a specifically because he was Black thing. It's just like I respect gaming enough to know that you can't. And I love that I feel so surrounded by my folks' love on this call, because usually a lot of times we get into these calls and bringing this topic and subject matter up is tough. It's valued to our psyche because we live the experience, right? To compare to those outside of it. So I want to take this time to segue into what I think is like a great time to explain why I always say Esports 2.0. See, Esports 2.0 is a time where someone like Malik could start new meta, and he has influence and experience and education on how to bring in the next generation, right? How to bring them in so they come in with the idea of how to start from the bottom. Because it is clear to me, it's very clear to me that the older millennial, and I guess the oldest of Gen Z, who are like starting teams, building brands, and doing everything, they watch so much Shark Tank that they think you can grow a business by raising rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds until something happens, right? And so that is just affluent around the esports community. If you are not like a publisher, the publishers print money, they sell the dope, so they don't ever have a problem with the games, right? And the money. They got that part. But everybody else in the ecosystem is raising and raising and raising, and no one's knowing how to get back to sales or start where to even begin, which is why what Malik dropped today is a great way for people who will end up being entrepreneurs or decision makers in this esports space, because people like Malik and us on Eat for Life are dropping ways for you to get in and build your brand to become undeniable, because the temperature is changing out here. Attention is the new currency, and there definitely is a chance for you to shift the landscape. But these conversations are great ways for people to see how 2.0 is going to be, because now the secret's out, right? Now the secret's out. Like, you got it to where celebrities are kind of investing in it because they see the popularity. That tells me the secret's out. We just got to work on educating them, because I saw that in the company eFuse, they got that investment recently. And one of the people who invested is Odell Beckham Jr., and he just lost money with Kevin Durant on Echo Fox. And it's like, so if you lost money in something, any astute investor is not going to go back to that same portfolio, especially if it's like Derek says, and they don't know what they're talking about. If I didn't know about something and someone's like, hey, touch this, and I was like, yeah, it burned me last time, I don't want to touch it again. No, this is not the case. He burned his hand last time with more of an investment, larger than this $6 million round raise, and they came back. Smaller amount, but they came back. So it's telling you that it's bigger, and I don't see any of these companies. I see them growing larger followings. I see them growing larger attention in PR and media, but I check the bottom lines frequently, and outside of the publishers, the bottom lines on these companies are, one, reported weird, and two, not really. They're more structured for what Marcus calls theater metrics, right? It's like, we have this many followers on YouTube, and they all make over $100,000 a month. And it's all YouTubers, so that's like all of our money. But YouTube is an independent contract situation. So really those people are wearing your jersey, working for themselves as contractors, and you're using that star power to try to build steam on an engine that there's actually no engine in the car. It's just rolling down the street, and when it runs out of gas, it runs out of gas. So I feel like that, to bring that back to what 2.0 is, it's actual people who actually play games, and not just play games, right? Like, understand the culture. Maybe you were a journalist at one point. Maybe you were a broadcaster at one point. Maybe you did play at one point. But these people being in positions that are decision makers, and then especially people, and yes, black people like Marcus, who are incredible delegators and connectors for people like me who aren't great at that. I think it's a time where a lot of that community can get involved in the space. It's just not there right now. It's just not there. It's definitely like a locked out experience. And I feel like platforms like this, platforms like what you're working on, Malik, they're huge in bringing in a new wave where people can gain an opportunity at levels we couldn't, right? We had to finesse it through the back door, you said earlier. I feel like we're coming into an era where that's not going to happen. So educating our people who follow this show and people who want to learn and build it in authenticity, I think educating them makes them that much stronger for the challenges that they're going to face.
Oh, yeah. Pro tip, don't invest in esports, invest in game culture.
Gem. Well, thank you guys. I ran us over about 2 minutes, but I appreciate you, Malik, dropping these gems. I hope y'all absorbed them up. And I mean, we'd love to have you back, dog. And we appreciate you. And
I just want to keep the conversation with all you guys going a lot more as we move forward, man. I do feel like that's something I could be better at, just making sure I'm talking to everybody more. So yeah, definitely, man. It was nice getting to run it with Marcus and Derek too. I never really got to talk to you guys, so this was really good.
To close out, I have to say, when I started in esports and really started doing my research on the industry, I'm an Overwatch guy. I really play that for sure. So when I saw that you were commentating and hosting that, you fueled my excitement more so in the industry. I was like, yes, there's a brother out here doing this thing, and they got him in front of the camera and everything. So you were inspiration to me to be in the industry as well, brother. I definitely appreciate you. So to meet you in person has been awesome.
It's awesome, dude. I appreciate that, man. And the Overwatch League exploited me. So just know that
that was one of my questions for you. We didn't get to that.
We can talk about it. At some point.
Next episode.
Yeah, definitely. Save room for dessert. All right. We gave you a full meal. Save room for dessert. Because I definitely want to know about that too. Great question, Derek. But yeah, that's what this Esports 2.0 thing is about. I love your transparency, Malik. We always try to keep it transparent here. We want y'all to be better, right? We came up from being hungry, starving in these streets. All right.
We did that so you won't have to go through that.
So you won't have to go through that, man. That's what I'm saying. Thank you for coming on the Eat for Life podcast, man. We definitely looking forward to having you soon. Y'all, the show will be out tomorrow on all where you get your podcast at, plus the Rage Network. Shout out to Rich. Thank you. You do the great work every week.
Shout out, Rich.
You make this great for us. We appreciate you. And We'll see y'all next week. You already know what time it is.
Eat for life.
Eat for life.